What up, my fellow dorks? It is the Turtle Dork back with a new recap and review. Game of Thrones Season 2, Episode 7. We're almost there. We're almost at the end. What's the name of this episode? Oh, shit. You didn't write it down. Episode 7, directed by Dave Nutter.
Whoops.
I'll put it somewhere on here. Don't worry. Anyway, I'm the Turtle Dork. This is the Disco Dork. Let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so we start the episode off with Theon trying to track down Bran, Rickon, Osha, Hodor, all of them. And he's with the Maester, Lewin. Maester Lewin.
There you go.
And yeah, I'm learning these names, man. You know,
because I was struggling. I was like, what the fuck is that dude's name? Shit. I was looking at your paper. I was like,
and he's basically kind of pleading with Theon and basically telling him, like, look, they're of no value if you bring them back dead. He's like, well, I'm only going to hurt them, but I'm not going to kill them. And so it's basically just Lewin and...
Damn, that was the opening of the episode?
Yeah.
This shit is all bleeding together now. Damn, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, so at least I think it is. There we go. No, that's episode 8. Never mind.
All right, my bad. Sorry.
No.
Man without honor.
That's right.
Which is a reference to Jamie. Which
That's right. That's right. A man without honor. We're all over the place. But hey, this is the show. So yeah, so that's the opening scene is with Theon. But I kind of want to get a little bit to the scene after that with Jon and Ygritte. So they're basically walking and talking, and Ygritte is basically she keeps toying.
You just like watching her bust that motherfucker's balls, man.
It's so fucking funny, man. Like, she just will not let up. But I mean, well, it's an interesting conversation that they're having because she learns that Jon Snow has never been with a woman. And she's kind of, she's busting his chops on that and stuff like that. But then it kind of gets into a real conversation that they're having about this oath that he took with the Night's Watch, and him being a Stark and being part of the First Men, and who the Wildlings are, and the king of the Wildlings, Mace Raider, and what he stands for, and her being free. So, I mean, she's doing this, but I think she's also doing this to try to prove a point as well, as far as her being a free woman and the Wildlings being these free people. Yeah. So I like that scene between the two of them. Tywin and Arya, I thought this was a really, really good scene, especially when when she's talking about the history of the Targaryens.
All their scenes together are just great.
Yeah.
All of them are great. Just because you got two dynamic opposites. Like, Tywin and Arya couldn't be two more different people.
True. Very true.
Two different upbringings, two different lots in life. Like, the stuff that she's first of all, she's so young.
Yeah.
And inexperienced, and he is older and has infinitely more experience than her.
Yeah.
And even with that, they're still learning from each other.
Very much so.
She's learning from Tywin. And whether that just be, the stuff that he's telling her or stuff that she's watching and observing.
Exactly.
Whether it be his leadership, or the stuff that he's saying about the family and all that. So she's learning stuff from him, but as he's conversing with her, he's also learning stuff too, because she's spouting off all this stuff about history and things like that. And he made that one comment where he said, "I'm pretty sure I knew that at your age when I was a boy." Meaning, like, right now, I don't have any recollection of any of that stuff that you just said, and that's impressive that at your age you know this, these things that me, a king, doesn't know.
Doesn't know, exactly.
So I think that's pretty cool as far as the interesting dynamic between those two.
Between the two, I mean, it's just like when you're a child, you learn algebra, but I couldn't tell you anything about how to fucking solve an equation now. As a 40-year-old man, I can't remember shit that I did back in fucking 9th grade.
That's true.
But yeah, it was some great scenes, and I think this also goes to what I was mentioning to you while we were watching the episode, was the fact that Tywin, you're right. He's learning a lot from Arya, but he's also picking up on certain things because although she's doing a good job of keeping her cover, she does kind of contradict herself, and I think Tywin picks up on that. Now, like I was saying, like he doesn't know who she is, but like you said, he knows that she's not who she says she is,
right? And
that she is hiding from something or covering something up. But I like the fact that he kind of calls her out, but he kind of leaves it at that because I think he kind of respects that. He respects that even a girl at her age, not knowing who she is or what she's running from, he respects the fact that, you know, she can kind of blend in and kind of keep the secret and have this other identity and kind of hide and whatnot.
I mean, even outside of the respect, I get the feeling that he is also just genuinely intrigued by her.
Yeah.
And I don't mean like it inappropriate, but someone who is so young to know so much, because he asks her, how did you learn to read? And she says, oh, my father taught me, but she had previously told him her father was a stonemason.
Yeah.
And in this particular world, it is uncommon for a stonemason to be literate, but not only literate, but as well read as Arya is portraying her father to be, because he, outside of giving her father credit, the stonemason credit for teaching her to read, she also credits him with the all the historical knowledge that she has. Right. So, and Tywin, he mentions that you know, I've never met a stonemason who was as well read as your father, and she quickly counters that with, oh, so you've met many stonemasons.
Yeah.
And that's when he was like, all right, chill. Like, I fucks with you, but you're a little too smart for your britches.
Exactly.
Chill out.
Because as soon as she said that, I was like, oh, no, one step too far.
Yeah. But she doesn't even, but the scene doesn't end there, firstly. Secondly, she doesn't even stop there. Because like you said, the scene ends with her. So she walks away. She's going to either go to the kitchen, get something to drink, or put some more firewood on. But as she's walking away, he says, "My lord." He corrects you. He says, "My lord."
That's right.
Says, excuse me.
Yeah.
He says, "A commoner like yourself wouldn't say, my lord. You would say, my lord." Mm-hmm. And then she counters that immediately with a story that.
I think she said something about either her parents or her mother taught her how to speak proper, but then she quickly says properly. Because she doesn't say it the proper way,
right? And
Tywin picks up on that as well, and that's what goes into the whole thing of him knowing that she's not who she says she is.
Yeah,
man, these are great scenes. Like we talked about it in the last episode, Dave Nutter just directs the hell out of these very intimate scenes, very character-driven, dialogue-driven scenes, and this is another great one. I want to jump a little bit to Jorah and Dany when they're up in her little suite.
Friend zone god returns.
Yeah. So I guess he was out looking for ships for her, and he comes to find out that her dragons were taken, and it kind of gets into this whole conversation about trust. And you know, he was telling her about. He's basically saying like. She's like, who are my people? And she was like, you know, the dog, half the Dothraki left once Drogo fell off his horse. You know, talking about her brother and how he was somebody that was her own blood that couldn't be trusted. And she just kind of like at this, she's the fact that her dragons are gone, it feels like she's at this defeated state right now.
Oh, of course.
And Jorah is trying to be there for her. And, but he's trying to tell her, like, look, these people of Karth are not the people to be trusted. And it's like, are you the one that I need to trust? So I don't know. I just thought that exchange was interesting because I think it just further just kind of shows their dynamic and how Jorah feels towards Khaleesi. But Khaleesi just being in this state right now, especially being so vulnerable without her dragons.
Yeah.
What else do I have here? Let's go back to Ygritte and Jon. So she's still busting his balls, but at this point, this is where they trap him.
Oh shit! Yeah.
So they get him, and this little area that they're walking through, and she's doing the same thing she's doing, being very sexual because she's playing with him, talking about because he's a virgin and whatnot, and she uses that to escape from him. And once she's able to escape, and she starts running like an 8-year-old boy.
Look, shout out to all the 8-year-old boys out there. He's not saying something wrong with that. He's just saying that it looks funny because when they shoot her from behind, I don't know. That's got to be a stunt double, right? It just looks weird. Not weird. It just looks funny. It
do.
Like the way her arms are swinging when she's running.
And she's taking like really short steps.
Yeah. There's a real lack of urgency in her steps. But I love you, Grit, so she gets bad for that.
So then she's with the other wildlings, and they got Jon Snow surrounded. And I think we end...
that's the last we see of them.
Yeah, that's the last we see of them. So we don't know. Well, I'm assuming they're going to take them back to Mance Rayder. So, and then we'll see the continuation of that probably in the forthcoming episodes. Sansa when she gets her period.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So wow. This scene opens with. It starts with. They show Sansa laying in the bed. She's laying on her back. She's asleep. And then they show
she's having a nightmare
about the attempted rape that the Hound saved her from.
Yeah.
And she wakes up. And when she wakes up in the bed, she removes the covers and she sees that she's menstruating. Yeah. And she loses her shit because she understands that once Cersei finds out, or if Joffrey finds out, then she's able to have children now. She's able to bear children. So she's freaking out, and Shay comes to her.
Yeah, shout out to Shay, man. She handled business, man, because she came there. They figured out a plan. It's like, look, let's flip the mattress. But then another girl comes in, sees it, and Shay she goes right into action. So she's like, she pulled that knife. Like, look, you ain't gonna say shit.
But you know what though, like that. I mean, that is admirable.
It is
that she did that, but
it is.
That's so dangerous for her to do that.
For Shay?
Yeah.
Well,
but that just goes to speak volumes about what she's willing to put herself in, or through, what type of danger she's willing to put herself through for Sansa, who she doesn't even know Sansa. Exactly. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
So that just speaks volumes about her character. But when she did that, when she ran out of the room after her and pulled a knife on her, just watching it now, I was just thinking like, man, that's so dangerous for you to be doing that, man. It's so risky because then they go back in, and the Hound is
right there.
Is right there.
Yeah, and
then Cersei ultimately finds out anyway.
Yeah. So you're saying that it's difficult for Shay as far as if that girl ultimately tells Cersei what happens, or if they find out the relationship between, because nobody knows about Shay and Tyrion.
Right. So if that's what I'm saying. Like if any type of attention drawn to Shay, if that ultimately gets, she gets led back to Tyrion, or if she just gets into any type of trouble at all, Tyrion's gonna find out. He's gonna care. He's not gonna want something to happen to her.
Because he cares about Shay. Yeah.
It'd just be messy. Her being in King's Landing is just messy all the way around.
Yeah, I mean that may not have been a good move for her to be the handmaiden. I mean I get it. She was getting cabin fever, so Tyrion was like, look, just be the handmaiden to Sansa. But you're right. That could have been a bad decision. Maybe a bad decision. We'll find out. But then ultimately we would get to Cersei and the conversation that she has with Sansa about Joffrey and having kids. And I call this Cersei schooling Sansa, because Sansa's still saying, she's like, I love Joffrey because she's still, playing that role. But Cersei is telling her, like, look, I know how my son is. And ultimately, the only person you need to love is the love for your children. Like, don't worry about having love for the king. At the end of the day, you need to love your children. Yeah. And that speaks volumes, because ultimately Joffrey is her child who she loves, but she knows, and we'll get to a scene between Cersei and Tyrion a bit later, but she knows who Joffrey is, and because of the relationship that Sansa has or will have with the king, she's trying to school Sansa on the role that she needs to play. And I just thought that was a really, really interesting scene.
It's also interesting because in this scene we hear Cersei talk about Robert Baratheon.
Yes.
And in that same discussion, with that same monologue she has about Robert Baratheon, she also meant so basically Cersei was telling Sansa about when she was in labor, when she was giving birth. And she said that, Cersei said that when this would happen, typically Robert would go on a hunt. Out hunting, instead of, because Sansa asked if, she remarked that, the king wasn't there when
she gave birth for Jon to the
and she said, no, he was out hunting. And she said that would be the ebb and flow. Like, it would be time for me to deliver. He'd get on the horse, go bring me back a boar's head or a stag's head or whatever. And I'd give him a child. And so Sansa was telling Sansa, like, all right, well, he wasn't there, but my brother was. So she's talking. That scene's interesting. She talks a little bit about Robert, but then she starts to talk about Jaime. When she's talking about Robert, if you pay attention to Cersei's facial expression, her mood, her emotions, her mannerisms, they're very specific in regards to her speaking about Robert. But when that conversation shifts and she starts talking about Jaime, you see a shift and you see the adoration for her brother, because she talks about how, well, Robert was off hunting, but Jaime was always there. And when he would be told, look, you can't be in here, Jaime would say, who's going to remove me? And he would be there for the birth of ultimately it's his child. But you see how these two people affect Cersei, the effect Robert has on her, and the effect that
Jaime has on her. I thought that was interesting too. Because you could definitely see the shift when she starts to talk about Robert as opposed to when she starts to talk about Jaime. Actually, speaking of Jaime, let's get to that whole scene in the pen when he.
This is the one when he
escapes. When he ultimately escapes, which is a great scene that, again, Dave Nutter, shout out to him for the way he directs the scene, how he allows the scene to kind of breathe.
Man, shout out to the writers.
It's great. Yeah, great writing. I don't know who wrote this particular. Was this Benioff and Weiss?
Who wrote this one? Because this scene starts off going this way. Because
it does, and
it's another prisoner put in there with Jaime.
I think it's like a squire or somebody. And
he was a previous squire of Jaime's.
And I want to say that was his cousin, wasn't it? Because that's the person that Rob was sending back and forth to King's Landing. Because I remember in a previous episode, he gave a message, and Tyrion said, "Safe travels, cousin." And I think that was him.
That was him.
That's crazy, man. That's his own family. That's crazy. Okay, so he was a squire to Jaime, and he's talking about watching Jaime be a warrior, a knight. And how that was like the best day of his life. He tells a story about this particular event that happened and him being by his side, and how that was the best day of his life.
He remembers every minute detail about that incident.
Which is wild. And then Jaime goes into a story about when he was 16 and was a squire to someone else. I forget the guy's name that he mentioned, and how they rode into battle, and then how they would challenge him as a squire, which ultimately led to who Jaime is now, becoming the great warrior that he's known to be now. And just hearing these stories back and forth, and how this leads to ultimately the plan that Jaime has to try to escape, how he's going to use this kid to kill this kid to try to escape. And I don't know. It's weird. We talk about that a lot, the complexities of these characters, and how we look at these characters, but then ultimately we sympathize with them. At this point, though, I know for me, when I originally watched the show, like, I was just like, Jaime was just like this character I just could not stand. And this just kind of solidifies that to a certain degree.
Well, even if you look at this scene, right, and watching it again, like, it wasn't until the moment before he was about to kill that kid, where I remarked to you, I think he's getting ready to kill this kid.
Yeah.
Because I couldn't remember from the first time I saw it, but when you watch this scene, it's so benevolent. The first half of the scene when
it is
because what happens is the kid gets put in there. Jamie's there. He's all covered in shit. He's tied up, and the kid remarks that I used to be your squire, and then you were just the greatest, and he stopped, but then Jamie was like, nah, I finished what you were saying, and so the kid tells a story, and the scene plays out, and then it takes a turn because Jamie tells his story, and then it takes a turn because Jamie's like, all right, because the kid asked, have you ever thought about trying to get out? And Jamie was like, every night. He's like, well, what's the plan? What do you want me to do? He's like, I just need you to do one thing. I need you to die, right?
Yeah.
So that's when it takes a turn. But if you go back and rewatch this scene with the knowledge that Jamie all along had planned to do this, it makes even that first, because the first half of that scene, you're like, man, that's dope that Jamie is responsive to this kid who has all this adoration for him, and Jamie reciprocates with a story to show that we're alike, because I was 16 once, but I wasn't a squire as good as you were, and there was this guy I looked up to, and I couldn't imagine how he was able to do what he did. And you're like, damn, like that's dope that Jamie's reciprocating this kid's story or whatever. And then the kid asks, have you thought about escaping? And then it takes a turn, and then you go, oh man, Jamie just went evil on us. But if you go back and watch that, and from the moment that kid is put in there, and you consider the fact that Jamie's been plotting, Jamie wants to kill
the time that he came into that pen. Man, yeah, just thinking about it now is playing differently. Yep.
It makes Jamie even that much more insufferable. Because that's some grimy shit. Because on top of the fact that that's his cousin, like you said, that's his blood.
That's crazy.
But
Oh man, that scene with Zorro when she finds out that Blue Lips dude was actually the one who took her dragons. So it seemed like him, whoever his name is, I can't remember. I think it was Payette or something like that. Was actually plotting with Zorro to kind of overthrow so that he could become king of Karth, and he was basically kind of using Dany and her dragons as pawns to kind of take over Karth. And I don't know. I felt bad for Dany in that moment. It's like, damn, she was being used by these cats, and Jorah tried to tell her. Jorah tried to tell her, like, these aren't people to be trusted. Yeah. But ultimately, just looking at that scene in a vacuum, it was kind of badass.
That scene was dope as fuck. Like, Squidward was assassinating everybody. That dude was like... So, it's a callback to earlier in, like, I want to say... Whenever that was, they got through the gates and they were in that courtyard, and there was that weird party you was talking about. Yeah. And Squidward dude, Purple Lips, did that thing where he made multiple copies of himself. So that wasn't just for sure. There was a callback to that in this episode, a payoff to that, in that he had multiple versions of himself around the 13. Yeah. And on cue, like, they all slit everyone's throats, which I thought was pretty dope. And then, like, they fled, right? And then we cut from there because we don't see them go. Because he kept saying, you need to come to the what is it? The Tower of the Undead, the House of the Undead.
The House of the Undying. Because George stabs him in the back, but then he vanishes.
He Obi-Wan Kenobi.
He Obi-Wan Kenobi, but then he shows up somewhere else, and then I think that scene cuts there.
Cause they leave. Cause I just remember the Dothraki dude like walking out of the door, like trying not to like holding his thing so properly, like kind of bump it or whatever. But and then we cut from that, and that's it. But he says, if you wanted your dragons, like, they're in the House of the Undying, go there. Yeah, he wants them to come there. And that's what I was talking about in that other episode when I was saying that she's going to end up in the House of the Undying. Because I remember, like, that dude's going to get lit on fire in there, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
And I know Zorro is going to get trapped in that
vault with that girl.
In that vault.
She plotted too. She was part of the plot. Yeah, because remember they find the one girl on the floor dead, and Danny's like, the other girl's gone, but she's probably dead too. Yeah, no, she's plotting.
Yeah. Then we get to Jamie escapes, but then Jamie gets captured, and the scene with Lady Stark.
They didn't show that escape, right? They showed him choke the kid
when they choked the guard. And then that was it.
And then they show him in custody again.
Yeah, when they bring him back, and one of the Karstarks, the one where his son.
Damn, Game of Thrones season 2 budget. You couldn't even film an escape sequence of Jamie just running through the bushes or some shit.
We don't know if that's the reason why. There's a lot. There could be narrative reasons why they do a lot of stuff off camera. I mean, there really can be.
That could have been the one he choked him out with the chain, and then like he looks and he sneaks out of the cell.
But you know, they do stuff because of pacing. There's a lot of reasons why certain things. You know how things work on the cutting room floor. If it doesn't work within the scene, if it doesn't fit pacing wise, it can get cut. So I mean, I don't know. It works. It works for me.
Hold on. I love you, Game. It works for me. I love you, Game of Thrones. I'm not. This is not me. Look, I don't want nobody coming for me in the comments. What I'm saying is this. I know, like, I can understand, like, for pacing. I'm not necessarily saying it's for budget, but the way it is now.
Yeah.
When we see Jamie, he tricks his cousin. Chokes him out, beats him with the freaking. No, he beats the cousin in the face. The guard comes in. He chokes the guard out. Then we cut. Yeah. Then we cut to another scene with other characters. Then we cut back to Jamie. He's in chains,
and they're bringing him.
And they're bringing him in. They're bringing him in, but it looks like they just went in and got him from out the cage while he was choking that dude. It doesn't.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
But I mean, the fact that we know that he escaped, then it's still.
But that's the thing. It doesn't even look like he escaped. It looked like he killed the guard and some other guard.
He had a little mud on his face.
They probably beat his ass. But yeah, I still love the episode. I still love that scene.
But yeah, so Lady Stark tries to plead with the Karstarks. I can't remember the gentleman's name, but he's the father of the guard that got killed. Mm-hmm. So he wants Jamie's head. And so Lady Stark is trying to plead with him to basically she's protecting Jamie. And it's so weird. Like, again, Jamie in this scene and another scene I want to talk about between him and Lady Stark. He just has this very pompous attitude. Even when he's cuffed, chained, and on his knees, he still is just like, just talking shit. And even in this moment when she's able to negotiate with the Karstarks to allow him to live, he's like, Lady Stark is like, I never knew you for a woman to I can't remember exactly what he said, but he's kind of messing with her a little bit.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I just thought that was an interesting scene as well, especially for Lady Stark in that moment, trying to keep the peace.
No, it was because Jamie had mentioned, Jamie was talking about how, because she called Jamie dishonored, because she called him Kingslayer. She said he has no honor. And he said, well, I've only been with my sister, whereas your husband, on the other hand, and then he goes into that story about
that's the scene in the pen, which we can actually get to that because I want to talk about another scene prior to that. But yeah, since we're talking about that, the scene in the pen where she's talking to Jamie about being the Kingslayer,
and so Jamie brings up the situation with Ned coming back and having fathered a bastard son, and how you must hate him, you must have hated him. As he's a reminder of your husband's infidelity, and that's when Caitlyn gets pissed off.
And it goes back to what I was saying before, as far as just Caitlyn throughout this season and to the show up until now. When I was talking about on the last episode with the Greyjoys, is like that resentment that she has, and Jamie even calls it out when he says like, "You're an honest woman, and you can't hide that." Yeah. It's like it shows that resentment that you have towards this child. That you never liked this child because of him being a bastard. It's just, I don't know. It goes back to what you're saying. It's very heartbreaking, especially now that we know the truth.
Yeah.
Like Jamie talking about that in that moment about Ned Stark, who's dead at this moment, and using that, just kind of stick that knife a little bit deeper and to twist that into Caitlyn.
Yeah.
And like I said, doing that when he's shackled and chained and on his knees to do something like that. Like, just the hubris that he has. It's just like, I don't know, man. It was extremely off-putting to me when I originally watched the show.
Well, at this point, he hasn't gotten to know Brienne yet. As a matter of fact, she's in this scene and he keeps remarking like, "Who is this man? Where'd you find this beast?" or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And rightfully, Caitlin says, "Well, she's more of a knight than you'll ever be." But so he hasn't gotten to know Brienne yet. So up to this point, Jamie only cares about Cersei and his kids.
Yeah,
like that's it. If it ain't got nothing to do with Cersei or his kids, he gives two shits.
Two shits about it. Yeah.
And even with his, even with all of his victories and his outstanding swordsmanship, like none of that shit really matters to him. All he cares about, like everything else can burn, as long as his kids and Cersei are still alive. And so that's why he can sit there and not give a shit. Like he doesn't care about it.
And just like with Theon, we talked about before, he's going to get knocked down. I mean, he hasn't lost his hand yet. And there's a great scene that I'm thinking of between him and Brienne when he talks about that moment, why people call him the Kingslayer.
Yeah.
And because I think people they misconstrued as far as like what actually happened. And then once he really tells that story to Brienne and how ultimately that makes him feel, you really start to you start to peel that stuff away, and you really do start to kind of connect with Jamie. And I think it kind of starts with those moments where he loses his hand and when he has that vulnerable moment with Brienne.
He has something kind of in common with Ned Stark in that he has and knows a truth that everyone else doesn't know, and he could clear that shit up. He could, clear the air in his name, but for some reason he doesn't. Yeah. And I'm not saying like for some reason Ned does. We know why Ned doesn't, but for some reason Jamie won't say. He won't tell everybody, or maybe he has, but he didn't tell definitely didn't tell Caitlin the story that he told Brienne. And when he's in the cell and Caitlyn's calling him out on being a Kingslayer, he could have told that story. Yeah, easily. But he doesn't. He doesn't. Yeah. I don't know. I just find that an interesting thing about Jamie, and that it is. That's something that he holds inside, and the fact that once that story comes out and the truth of that story and what happens in his part in it and his place in it, it makes you feel bad. Like, damn, Jamie, like. Why wouldn't you just say this before? Like, Yeah, exactly. That's crazy. But yeah, he's one of my favorite characters of the show.
He is. I mean, let's two more scenes I want to talk about. Let's get to Cersei and Tyrion.
I totally forgot about this scene, but this might be my favorite scene with these two characters.
Because I think we'll get into some of the details, but overall, this scene for me, this feels like the first time Cersei shows any type of vulnerability, especially towards Tyrion, and it also feels like a moment that
it might be the only time it happens.
The only time, and Tyrion and Cersei actually have a genuine moment of compassion, especially Tyrion towards Cersei.
Well, I would say that it is that way. Yeah, and I don't know if it's necessarily reciprocated by Cersei, because you could see. So this scene. What happens in this scene is, Tyrion, it starts out, Tyrion taking jabs at her, and she takes a jab at him, and
it's a conversation about Joffrey.
It turns into a conversation about Joffrey and how, he's the king. He needs to start acting like a king. We got Stannis on his way with 200 ships. And Cersei is talking about, we'll be all right because we have high walls. We just rain down fire on them. Yeah. And then Cersei gets, Jamie's like, Tyrion's like, yo, why don't you just control your boy? Yeah. And then she admits that thing that I was saying like earlier in a couple of episodes, how I like that, Cersei created this monster and then now she can't control him. She can't control She admits it. She admits it in this moment. She's like, yo, I can't control him. And Tyrion's like, yo, you it's hard to put a leash on a dog once you put a crown on his head. Yeah. And then she starts talking about. She says something about Jamie. She's like, well, Joffrey looks like Jamie, and then Tyrion kind of gives her a look, and then she's like, in the light.
But
she's talking about her kids, and she's wondering. She's talking about she says she's telling Tyrion, like, you know, we would tell ourselves, both Jamie and I would tell ourselves, because Tyrion said something about he says, yeah, Joffrey's crazy and you can't control him, but you have these other beautiful kids, and they're decent people.
They're good kids. Tommen and Marcella are really decent kids. And she even mentions that and she wanted Joffrey to be more like Jaime, but he kind of took a little bit more after Robert. But she says, like, but Robert was a fool, but he was never cruel.
Yeah.
You know? But you just see the pain that Cersei has as a mother.
Because the interesting thing comes when she says she wonders if Joffrey is her punishment for her sins, like for her sleeping with her brother or whatever.
Yeah, because she's talking about the Targaryens. Yeah,
and then she said that they were doing it for hundreds of years, and her and Jaime would tell themselves that, you know, to rationalize what they were doing. They would say, well, the Targaryens been doing it, but she genuinely was wondering. She wonders, like, if the way Joffrey is a punishment. Yeah. And it's in that moment of her vulnerability that Tyrion comes over. And it's so funny because it's awkward, because they, outside of this conversation, you know, she would have this motherfucker killed if she could.
Yeah.
Right? But in this moment, Tyrion does have and show compassion for his sister, who would, outside of this, have him killed, right?
Exactly. And it feels awkward for Tyrion.
Well, because he probably has never in any other circumstance showed any type of positive affection towards her. And so he doesn't even know how to. He just walks over to her and stands, not even in front of her. He's standing like she's here,
like a little puppy dog.
He's like over here, and it's almost like he don't know what to do. Like he wanted to move my arms up, a hug, and you just see the. You know, shout out to both of them for their performances in that moment.
Because it was great.
Seriously, you know, you could see her going through her emotions. Then she kind of looks up and sees him right there, like, the fuck are you doing right there? We're being weird. But she doesn't push him away.
She doesn't
push him away, which that's saying a lot.
It does.
That says a lot about, at the very least, her state of vulnerability in that particular moment.
Exactly.
She don't push him away.
I love that between the two of them.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we see that again in the series. Maybe. I could be mistaken. We'll find out. But yeah, I just thought it was just a great scene between the two of them. All right, final scene, man. Because I had questions. Okay, because when the episode ended, I was like, I was trying to ask you. He's like, all right, let's just record. Let's record. So, all right, we here. So, Theon. Theon is back in Winterfell, and the Maester Luwin is there, and he's staking his claim, and he shows two dead bodies strung up on some nooses that are burnt bodies that are two young boys, who we are supposed to assume is Rickon and Bran, which we know that it's not. But in the episode before this, and even talking about this off camera, we were saying that, you know, Theon knew that this wasn't them, because he knew that they escaped and they were tracking them, and he didn't capture them. But the way this episode ends, and that final shot when Theon looks back at the burnt bodies, it looks like he wasn't in on this, or at least he didn't know.
You feel like he looked disturbed by those bodies?
It did. It kind of made me question it a little bit. Okay,
I peeped that too, but immediately what I thought was, because he knows. But again, what I said earlier about the fact that with Theon being raised by Ned as opposed to his own father, like what the goodness that Theon has in him. My theory is the look that Theon gave was because he knew that wasn't Bran and Rickon, but he also knew that was two other kids that had to die in place of that. And the fact that he had to do that to save Bran and Rickon. And the reason why I noted that was because this time is because I was like, damn, he cares about them that much that he's willing to do something that fucked up.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So it's It's almost like the lesser of two evils. Like, in order to save these two kids, I had to freaking murder two kids, and that's hard.
Wow.
Especially for him.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Because that's not them, but that's two kids, and that's the look that I got from. That's what I got from that look. It's like, nah, that's not Brandon Recon, but I had to fucking kill two kids so that they could live. And you know he's not built like that. Like, you saw he almost lost his shit when he cut dude's head off.
Yeah.
So
okay,
again,
that makes sense.
That means that there's still some good in a way, in a roundabout way, in a weird way, in him that still bothered him.
Yeah.
But it also speaks to the lengths at which he would go to
try to save them as well.
Right. So I found that interesting to watch. I don't know that I didn't pick. I guarantee I didn't pick that up the first time I watched it.
Okay. I wasn't even thinking that when I watched it, because looking at that, I immediately went to, well, why would he react that way? Because I felt that he does still have love for Brandon Recon. I just felt that he felt disturbed that he had to kill, or that he thought that was them.
Yeah.
But you're right. The fact that he would have to go to those lengths to kill two young boys to save them, and how that would still affect him, knowing that he would have to go to those lengths to do that. That does make sense. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So let us know what you thought of that final scene and all the scenes, this whole episode. What was the name of this one again?
Yep. I can tell you. I told you, man, we did the thing in the beginning. I thought,
honor of a good man. A man with no honor.
Damn. You're just going to make up your own titles, huh?
Yeah. A Man with No Honor, directed by Dave Nutter.
Oh, okay. A Man Without Honor.
Without honor. Okay. I'm sorry, right. Man Without Honor. Anyway.
You want me to do the outro?
I got it.
Okay.
I think I got it.
I got it.
I can do it. All right. Remember, comment below, rate, like, subscribe, and share. Remember to check out our other dorks, at Mouth Dork, at WB Daz, at Sidewalk Siren. This guy is the Disco Dork. I am the Turtle Dork, and with that, we're out.
Damn, motherfucker, you did it.